So hey folks, we're back. Had a request on how to calculate some meshes, some hanging ratios and stuff. So I want to kind of do a quick rundown. It's easier to figure a wall of webbing or a flat panel in hanging ratio because that can be dynamically different. On a hook net, you pretty well set it and go with it. I tie my hook nets on a half, hang it on a half, which means the width of a diamond, if you look right here, I've got a diamond drawn. The width of the diamond is equal to a bar, which is from knot to knot. Stretched is across the whole diamond, which is a knot and another knot, a bar and a bar, 2 bars. So I hang it on a half, and that's where everything falls, and it just works. It works out good. The net hangs good. It's got plenty of body, plenty of volume. It's probably the most efficient in terms of the fewest knots. You start figuring mesh counts, and it gets kind of complicated. I just like to hang it on a half because it fishes well, it holds well in the water, and it holds its shape well. We're going to continue hanging on a half with our wall of webbing. There is if you look up, and I'm going to give a plug to Fish Net Company. Gonna borrow some of their information. They've got a really good write-up on hanging ratios and stuff. I'll send a link to that page, or I'll put a link to that page in the description. Also, if you look here, there is here's a picture of their hanging ratio. This is, you can see the different hanging ratios here. A higher ratio means it's tighter, a lower ratio. And look here too, you see it's got the overall hanging ratio, and then it's got a measurement of height and a measurement of length. The measurement of height is up and down, and length, or running length, is how long horizontally it is. And you can see your different percents here. Look at that, pay attention to that, and that'll kind of make sense here in a minute. We're tying 1.5 inch, which hangs, or we're hanging on a half, which is, if you look, it says, you'll see here 50% in width, 86.6% in height. This is where this information comes from. This chart is very, very, very useful. So here's the link to it, and this will help you if you're ordering webbing that's already pre-hung. This tells you can figure how much you need, how high you need it. Memphis Net and Twine is another company that's a really good company to order from. They will tell you, you buy it by the running feet, and you have to know your mesh count. You have to know how many pounds. They'll tell you how many meshes are in a pound. And then you have to figure how many pounds of webbing, but you have to know your hanging ratio to know how wide you're going to need it. This is all information that's a little extra. Getting back to the hook net, getting back to the wall of webbing. Once you know you want to hang it on a half, or you want to hang it on a third. Hanging ratio, hanging on a third, for instance, is going to be, we have a 3-inch stretched. Hanging on thirds means it takes up a third of its stretched length. So a 3-inch stretched mesh hung on a third would only be 1 inch wide when you got it hung. That makes the mesh longer, but it means you need more meshes for your width. So instead of where we're hanging on a half, it takes 2 meshes, 2.5 inch meshes to get 3 inches stretched. You would need 3 if you hung it on a third. If you hang on 2/3, then your stretched length is 3 inches. 2/3 of that is going to be 2 inches. So your diamonds are going to be wider than they are tall. Depending on which way you're calculating your meshes and what you're doing, you may want to hang it on a third, a half, 2/3. You can hang any variation thereof. Again, look back at the chart at the Fish Net Company. It will tell you kind of what your more efficient something to do is. The most common way to tie webbing, to hang webbing, is going to be to hang it on a half. It's your most efficient, the best. It catches well in flag webbing, tying leads. It works well. It's easier to figure. then pretty well anything else is, because you only got to do about half the work. But what is the math? So when we're tying a wall of webbing, whatever it is, we need to know some dimensions. First thing we need to know, how many meshes high do we need it and how many meshes long do we need it. We need to know how many inches high the net is and how many inches long the net is. So for my wings, my leads, I'm going to tie them 30 inches tall to match the top hook and 10 foot long. So that's 30 by 120 inches. Right here. Okay, this is what we're tying. 30 by 120 inch walls. We got two of them, but I'm figuring each one they're going to be the same. Okay, 30 by 120, 1.5 bar mesh, 3-inch stretched. I'm going to hang it on a half, which means each across the middle of the diamond, across the diamond, is going to be half of its stretched length, which means this is going to be 1.5 inches from outside to outside. Okay, 1.5 inches, or hang it on a half, 50% hanging ratio. The height, this is where your height, you need this number. That's 86.6%. We have to know though, see now it's pretty easy to figure our width, our length, but we've got to come up with another number to figure our overall height. So we need to know, to tie this, how many meshes high and how many meshes long. Well, your height is your stretched mesh times your number of meshes times your percent height equals your overall height. That sounds like a big number, and I've got another paper here to show you in a minute. The formula is the same for length though. Stretch mesh times the number of meshes times the percent length. So for our length, because we've already kind of got some of that filled in, our stretched mesh, which is 3 inches, times the number of meshes, which we don't know, times our percent length, which is 50. Okay, here we go. 3 times we don't know times 50% equals our total length. Alright, 3 inches, we're just going to start plugging numbers in. 3 inches times what we need to know times 0.5, because this is how you express percents as a decimal, times 120 inches. If we multiply both sides, or we multiply 3 times 0.5, we get 1.5 inches. Now that makes sense, right? We're hanging it on a half. It's half as wide as it is stretched. So 1.5 inches. So if we divide both sides by 1.5 inches, doing a little bit of whatever kind of math this is, you get 80 meshes. So let's turn this around and make sure we're right. If we tie 80 meshes long, and each one of them covers 1.5 inches, how many inches do we end up with? 120. So our math is right. So our length is going to be 80 meshes long. So what about our height? Height, we have a similar deal. 3 inches times I put M for mesh count, times our percentage equals our overall height. Now we need to know how many meshes we've got. So we've got 86.6%. So again, what's 3 times 86.6? Well, if you use 3 times 0.86 gives us 2.598. Now, what that means is that our height of our diamond is 2.598 inches, 2.6 inches. Does that make sense? Well, as you widen the diamond, it gets shorter. So if it's 3-inch overall stretch, it's going to shorten down a little bit, shorten down by about 1/2 inch. That makes sense. So 2.598, if we divide 30, which is our overall height, by 2.598, we get 11.55. So let me see if this makes sense. 11.55 times our overall individual mesh height of 2.598. If each one takes 2.5 inches and we tie 11.5 of them, we're going to end up right at, we're going to end up with 30 meshes. So we know our height is going to be 30 meshes and our width is 80 meshes if we hang it on a half. Well, that's everything we need to know. We're going to start tied. We're going to tie 11.5 meshes wide and go 80 meshes long. Our mesh count's going to be set, and we're going to be good to go. Now, if you were hanging on a third, all you have to do is change this percent right here. Okay, each formula you change. Now, this is the formula, and you have to divide stuff out. You can, I don't remember exactly how the math goes. My wife's a school teacher and probably would know. But you can use these formulas, and you use your, so this is how your hanging ratios affect your overall height and your mesh count. If you have any questions about it, ask. I'll do my best to explain it. If this has helped you in any way, please like, subscribe, share, comment, let me know. And if you have questions, just let me know. I'll do my best to explain it. Thank you, guys.